小伙伴们好，欢迎参加 T9科农会硅谷分会的硅谷连线。本期是我们第20期，这次呢还是以一个 AI 的主题，但是我们这次会聊到硬件、bioscience 和 medical device。T9科农会是极客邦旗下的科技领导者聚集和交流的组织，学员由 CTO、架构师、技术 VP 和有技术背景的 CEO 组成。目前已经在上海、北京、深圳、广州。新加坡、硅谷、台北等地都会定期的举办活动。硅谷分会秉持提升亚裔技术领导力的使命，为全球国际技术交流提供最前沿的消息。我是主持人俊伟。然后本次呢，我们邀请了 Stanford 的 alumni 和这个 Dr. 肖，我们一起去聊一下General AI 对3个不同领域的一些的发展。那这次呢，也是我们硅谷连线的一次新的尝试，我们会采用双语的 Mandarin and English to do the communication and discussion. 谢谢。So let's start. Okay. So I mean, this is the first time we will try to use dual language and Mandarin and English to communicate and discuss about the generative AI application in the hardware, maybe the hardware design or hardware innovation, and the application, the medical device, and some of the drug founderings, or the drug development application about it. And then the last part, I think we will also talk about the immigration career development in America. So yeah, this is the whole picture. And let's start the first step. Would you want to, the three guys, would you want to give yourself the introduction about yourself, about your company, and or your startup? Yes. How about this way from the Dr. Xiao? Yeah.
Hello, Junwei. Thank you for the invitation. And my name is Zibin Xiao. So chip design for many, many years. So I came to the US, Silicon Valley, 2006, and got my PhD here in California, and then working on different companies and startups. So actually, like NVIDIA CEO said, NVIDIA is an accelerated computing company. So actually, all my career is doing accelerating computing other than graphics. So I was working on different project, chip design, in like database accelerating, video codec, and CPU design, and DSP processor designs. And in the last 7 years, I was working on AI accelerator designs. So, and recently I found the AI accelerating or machine learning, the problem may not be in the chip design. So recently I was doing another startup. We're building AI infrastructure, software, and systems. So that's my career. And also I have another identity as Jinwei mentioned. I'm the vice president of CASPA, which is a nonprofit organization founded in 1991. It's a Chinese American semiconductor professional organization. Yeah, I think we can talk a little bit more after all the speakers' introduction. Yeah.
Yes. How about Julie? Yeah.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Junwei, for inviting me to be part of this today's podcast episode. My name is Julie, and I was born and raised in the U.S. So my parents immigrated from southern China, from outside Guangzhou, and I've always been really, interested in pursuing science. That was my dream. So I ended up going to Caltech, where I obtained a bachelor's in geobiology, a very different field, but got very excited about the idea of how we can really think about human health and thinking through the different aspects of our immune system in fighting off different diseases. And so I ended up pursuing a PhD at Stanford in microbiology and immunology, where we're really focused on understanding microbiome as well and thinking about how we can use a different type of therapy potentially for diseases like cancer and infectious diseases and inflammatory diseases. I made my way into the biotech industry after my PhD, where I worked at Amgen, a very large biotechnology company focused on developing new treatments for cancer. And that's where I started seeing the development of all of these large data sets, the era of the omics, as we say. There's the genomics looking at DNA, then proteomics. And with all this data, this is where I've been seeing a lot of the opportunities for AI to come in and help us better understand the data and to be able to mine them for insights. Currently, I am a staff scientist at a company called Elector in South San Francisco, and we focus on developing treatments for neurodegeneration. So diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and frontotemporal dementia. And I work more now in the clinical development side, meaning that I focus my efforts on really leveraging what we learn from clinical trials to see how treatments might be impacting patients. On the side, I am also very involved in this other nonprofit group called Monty Jade. It's a science and technology association that has a flagship mentorship program where we help Asian American professionals really develop into leaders. And this year I am the chair of the mentorship program and happy to also be working with Michael, who is the vice chair. And so I think with that, I'll turn it over to Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting us today. So I'm Michael, the co-founder and CEO at SPECT, where we enable eye care. So my journey to where I am today, I was originally born in Canada, in Montreal, and then raised in Toronto. I got my bachelor's degree in engineering and material science, and then came out to California for graduate school. I was at Stanford for my master's, and then did not finish my PhD, so I dropped out. So today I live in San Francisco. So at SPECT, as I mentioned earlier, we enable eye care anywhere through our platform that I call the stethoscope of the eye. So our mission is to prevent the blindness through early detection of disease with our platform. You're looking at data and health analytics. So we're able to predict, eye conditions today, glaucoma, AMD, cataract, diabetic retinopathy, but over time be able to target some of the other systemic diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, stroke, heart attack. All of this, because the retina, the back part of your eye, you can see blood vessels and you see nerves. And so it's basically taking a biopsy in a non-invasive manner.
Thank you, guys. Hi, Julie. For your bachelor, the university, the big name is about Big Bang Theory, Sheldon. Lots of people know about this kind of TV show, the Big Bang Theory. Okay, so let's start to the second part. The second part is I will try to use Mandarin to talk with 肖博士，我们去聊一下可能 generative AI 在硬件方面的一些这个进展。然后呢，我们会跟这个黄博士和 Michael， 然后去讨论一下在 bioscience 和这个 medical device 方面的一些进展。肖博士，那你觉得现在因为你现在更加的又 focus 在 AI 和偏一些这个软件方面的一些这个进展，能描述一下？大家现在在用 generative AI 已经开始，比如说关于这个芯片的底赞方面，它是如何利用它们去帮助人们辅助去设计芯片的？根据您的观察，谢谢。
So I can speak a little bit Mandarin now.
Okay.
So actually, 其实每一个行业都有AI for some industry or this industry for AI, right? So semiconductor 是一个 foundation for AI technology. So like NVIDIA, all those companies, Broadcom, all these companies are using actually provide a foundation for the AI technology. 但是现在也有一个很大的趋势就是用 AI 去设计芯片，甚至于设计硬件系统。那目前比如说像英伟达去年他们宣布了一个AI 的 system 叫做 Chip Nemo。那 Chip Nemo 呢是他们内部用的一个 AI 的 system， 然后它是基于像开源的模型 Llama， 然后再根据它英伟达自己内部的数据做 fine tune， 然后帮助英伟达内部的工程师设计 GPU 芯片。那目前来说，因为我们知道设计芯片是一个很复杂的过程，那 他们现在还是用就是在比较早期啊，就是用的一些功能主要是帮助，比如说帮助工程师更好的去做 Q&A， 去 search document 然后去得到各种信息，就内部的信息。然后第二个是工程师他像我们写这个设计芯片，其实也是编程啊，现在都有这种 RTL 的这种 design language， 所以它可以生成这种 Verilog code， 帮你去写各种 script， 然后还可以去帮你去 automate your task， so 芯片设计的这个 task。 所以目前像英伟达是有这方面的尝试。那芯片设计方面呢，有2家最重要的公司EDA 公司，一个叫 Synopsys and another one is Cadence。 所以 both Synopsys and Cadence are working on using AI for their chip implementation process。 所以大家其实可以看有一个网站叫 Synopsys.ai。 那 Synopsys.ai 里面呢，它其实 Synopsys 它提供一系列的 AI 这个芯片设计的工具，所以它在芯片设计的每一步其实都开始用上 AI 的这些功能。那然后像 Cadence 他们内部也有基于 AI Agent 和 AIM 做芯片实现的这种，基本上就是在原有的工具上面用上 AI 的功能，然后提高效率。这是目前的一些大公司的进展。但是从我的角度看呢，就是现在因为做 AI 芯片啊，就是做芯片它本身是一个优化的问题 optimization problem。 So for optimization problem, LM is still not that mature. So I know there's a lot of research paper like LM as an optimizer, right? But it's still not mature yet. So所以我觉得这里面还有很多的 research work to do， 就是有很多的这个研究的工作。我觉得有一个很好的方向，就是用上大模型的功能，再加上 AI agent 的 framework， 然后把我们芯片设计的每一个步骤去 automate， 然后这是一个很好的方向，这也是现在这些 EDA 大厂在做的一个方向。对，这个也跟我自己现在做的事情也相关。因为我们现在就是我们做很多事情，其中一件事情就是说用 AI 怎么样去把我自己的工作取代掉，因为我做架构师，怎么样去做 architecture 的这个 copilot 取代我自己的工作，这也是我们其中的一个方向。对，
谢谢您的分享。那因为我之前知道我同实验室的人有的可能去英特尔去做很多的这个优化问题，之前会有很多芯片的比如说布线啊这种 layout 的问题，其实是在数学或者几何当中是非常 classical 的一个 optimization 的一件事情那就回到您刚才那个问题，那既然要想取代你现在的工作，那这样想，就是如果取代了现在的工作，那可能在这一层这些 engineer 他们的下一步会是什么呢？会是更加去做有这种创新性的工作吗？还是可能就直接从这个 industry 去其他的这个领域呢？就是在下一步会是什么呢？如果现在这些 routine 的工作被取代掉。
对，其实现在就是相当于是很多 junior 的这种芯片设计的 junior 的工作可能会被取代。那以后就是我们自己做架构师的，就是架构师会工作会比较好，因为你基本上有一个 copilot 的，加上架构师，你就可以 design 出很多各种有趣的这个芯片也好，系统也好。那这是一个趋势。那这些就是针对某个领域的工程师呢，那可能会用上他的 domain knowledge 去帮助 build 这个 system。那这也是因为 AI 嘛，它只是一个比较通用的一个工具，它没有 domain knowledge。So you need some domain knowledge to make the copilot or whatever design automation tool better. So 所以大家的工作取决于你怎么样去跟 AI 去结合，然后取决于你怎么样去contribute to the embrace of the AI revolution。
OK， 那我觉得有一个很好的一个心知，就是其实大家在觉得去谈论硬件 design 的时候，它其实还是一件软件的活，因为大家现在都用 Verilog 等等的，还是用 language 这些 coding 的语言去描述它。那其实很多情况下反而又像一些这种大厂真正去 software 或者这个 web developer 这些人做的工种都差不多，所以大家都面临的 专业人士有这个 generative AI 的一个提速。那在硬件方面的时候，你看我如果用这个 generative AI 去写一些 unit test，它如果出错了，其实我还可以去检查。那我们在实际的应用它的过程当中，这个效率和准确率如何去平衡呢？我们有一些这方面的考量吗？这个精确度。
对，目前我没有这方面的直接数据哈，但是我觉得现在构建这些 AI 系统的问题是在于数据，因为传统的芯片公司或者硬件公司数据它基本上是非常保密的，就是你基本上不可能找到一些通用的数据集，或者是他们自己公司的 proprietary 的 information basically you cannot disclose to the outside world, right? So 但是每一个公司的这个数据都是 very limited， 所以它可能会碰到一些瓶颈，就是如果用来写 Unicode 啊，它首先要创造足够大的这种data set。那这里面可能工业界会有一些这种collaboration， 大家贡献出就是集体提供这种 AI 芯片设计，或者是包括刚才写的 verification test 的这种 script 的这种 data set。那现在目前我觉得应该市面上还没有，这也是一个很好的机会，就是你可以要做就是芯片行业的这个 ImageNet， 你可以认为对。
Okay, thank you, Dr. Xiao. So the change a little bit. Hi, Julia. Yes, we can discuss about your career for the drug discovery or the development. Yes, we also can. Would you mind to share some stories about? I know the Google, they already have the AlphaFold 2 or AlphaFold 3, and the Meta, they also have the open source projects. So for those science, previously we will think, okay, this where the science and engineering heavy the industry to do the drug discovery and the development. Do we have something new? The science or the breakthrough based on the AI? Would you mind to share some stories about that? Thank you.
Sure, of course. Yes, I think when those AlphaFold, resources came out to suggest that there are these new ways of analyzing for protein targets, that was quite exciting. I think right now we're still very much in that phase of testing out those hypotheses of what it was generating. And I know that there are companies also trying to leverage AI to identify new proteins that we haven't actually even seen in nature. It's not so much that they're not in existence, but that we just haven't discovered them. And potentially these could be, new ways to think about drugs and have them be tested. But ultimately, I think the challenge in biotechnology is that we still need to do a lot of the manual work to test the targets that are being identified or test the new drugs that we're trying to actually develop and see if they indeed could remediate the disease aspect. So in drug development, I do see a lot of the applications of AI still in that early discovery phase of the drug development process. So just to step back, we have discovery where we're doing a lot of the data generation or mining data sets to look for targets related to a disease. When we have a target that we think is going to be beneficial to have a drug go against to be able to impact an underlying disease, then we go into creating an actual drug to be able to target those proteins typically. And so I think that's where, drug development is seeing a lot of the applications in AI where we can identify those targets and then screen through new drugs that go against those targets and see if that actually gives us a new therapy for a certain disease. Where we are now in clinical trials, as we get closer to patients, that's where the bar for the accuracy, of what we're going after is quite high. We don't want to have false negatives in terms of diagnosis or false positive, results. And so that's where I think the adoption of AI is going to take some time to be able to see how accurate the data is that's being generated. And of course, a lot of, with the current models, what you get out of these algorithms is what you also put in. And so a lot of the big challenge too in biology is just that the data that we have is heterogeneous, right? And being able to have a lot of data in order to inform the model is going to be very important. And we're still in the midst of generating a lot of those data for whatever the application is to be able to give you, accurate predictions. So predictions, I think, is still like really far from where we can really be able to trust how those results are. And ultimately, whatever we see as a new insight, we have to do the downstream experiments using cells, using animal models to make sure that the targets we're going after are actually relevant for the disease. And so that's in terms of just kind of what I've been seeing. We are seeing the adoption of things in AI to help maybe with some of the more manual work of going through the large data sets to be able to look for new insights. And so that's still a lot more on the use of, again, generating all these different data sets to understand not only genomics, but the proteins, proteomics. Now we have metabolomics, looking at metabolites that are being produced. And the idea is to integrate the insights from these different data sets to be able to understand how a disease actually progresses. So then we have a better idea of what the good targets are. So that's I guess an overview of where I've seen the applications of AI in biotechnology. And it's a long process for sure when we get from the insights, the ideas and hypotheses to the actual testing in humans in clinical trials. So we're looking at ways to shorten those timelines with the use of AI is definitely an area that a lot of companies are looking to do, because we recognize 10 to 15 years is a long time to get a drug into patients. And so that's where we're looking for ways to leverage AI to really heighten the efficiencies of that process.
Yeah, so it looks like a lot of players joined the game because they found actually they have some of the low food. Actually, it's not exactly the low food, but actually we can accelerate about to finding the drug, the candidate drug,
Yes.
or maybe the candidate is kind of protein structure used or maybe potential for human health. But actually after that, we still need to do some the manual animal, this kind of test, and then go to the clinical trials. But for the clinical trials and the animal test, we can't shorten this kind of period. Maybe you will still need about 6 or 7 years to verify and get approval of FDA. But for the start phase, actually this kind of generative AI can help us to find this kind of seed of a candidate. It gives us some lots of imagination about that. I think that this kind of the layout. Yeah. By the way, would you mind to share, for example, end-to-end life cycle to find a new drug in your industry? Because our audience usually from the software engineer or the tech lead in the the high-tech industry. Yes. Would you mind to share some more context in your area? Yeah.
Sure, I'm happy to. So drug development, as I mentioned, could be 10, 15 years long from a discovery of a target to actually getting a treatment to patients. And that whole process involves, a lot of it is the research at the very beginning that we're seeing being done in the academic labs, as well as larger companies that may have the resources to really explore the biology. We've come a long way in terms of what we understand, and we have new technologies like CRISPR and all the omics type of studies that gives us insights. But like you said, we're still very much it's a slow process to identify new targets. But with AI, hopefully we can have more hypotheses of what are relevant targets in a disease. And once you identify those, then you're testing them in usually cell culture models where you might remove the protein, target from the cell, and then you see how does the cell behave. And that gives you an idea of whether it's actually relevant, in the biology of the cell in the context of whatever the disease you're looking at. So in my case, we're looking at neurodegeneration. So, a lot of our targets are looking at the immune cells in the brain. And we look for targets that can make the immune cells be better at fighting off the neurodegenerative disease processes. And so once we identify those targets, then we develop molecules that are going to target those proteins that usually are protein targets to either block them or to enhance the protein. So there are different ways you can kind of change the way the biology works. And these proteins well, in biotechnology, you're generating antibody proteins as the drug. There are also drugs called small molecules, which is based on chemistry to go and be able to change the biology. But the difference between those two is that the large molecules, because they're antibodies, they're very specific to the target, which means that the off-target effects, side effects, are lower than if you have the small molecule. So biotechnology was born to really generate new treatments that are basically antibody-based, and these are the large molecules, we call them. And so I'm going to talk about that type of medicine. So once you have those molecules generate, usually you make different versions, and then you test which one is going to be the best one to go after your target, because you need to see how long does it stay in the system, is it actually hitting your target. And that's when you start going into what we call translational sciences, where we're looking for ways to better understand the actual drug, the antibody in this case, in an organism. And so that's where we can test it in the mouse, or also in non-human primates, monkeys, to be able to see how long does this drug stay in our system? Is it hitting the target that we intended to hit? Are there any other safety issues that we see when the animal is taking this drug? So safety and tolerability is the very key thing before the FDA, in the US at least, will then grant you, the permission to be able to test in humans. And so if you do get approval to move into the clinical trials, the first phase of the trial is really to assess the safety and tolerability of the drug. And usually you go at different doses to find the right titration of the drug. And then once you have established safety, then you go into the population with your disease. So in our case, if we're looking at dementia patients, we will try to find the dementia patients to enroll. Then we will give them the drug in the dose that we find to be safe, first of all, and then hopefully efficacious, that's able to, be effective for them. And in the phase 2 study, if you see that there is safety in your patient population, then you can go into a large phase 3 study, which we call a pivotal trial. And that's where you are often testing with people who are on treatment on your drug and people who are not on your drug, on placebo, so that you can assess, is your treatment actually working in the patient population on a large scale where you can do statistical analysis. In areas, like mine, where in treatments of the brain, sometimes it's hard to really assess like cognitive decline. It's a little more variable when you assess this. So we also leverage things called biomarkers, which are often proteins in the blood that you can measure. And that way, these proteins are basically what we might think represent different aspects of the disease. And if you can see that if your patient under treatment has a change in these proteins, that might indicate your treatment's also working. But yeah, that whole process from discovery to clinical trials, depending on the disease, could take quite a long time. And often the long time is, the discovery piece, because so many of the targets you identify are not good targets, or they end up having drugs that really aren't effective. And a lot of the failure actually can happen, before you even get into the clinical trial. So you have to discover and make a lot of bets before you find one drug that can then move into patients. And then, of course, in the clinical trials, that also has a high bar for what makes it through. So that's where if we can get more candidates in the funnel, that's when we can then have, the probability of having an actual successful treatment available at the end of the process. So hopefully that helps.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Lots of, this kind of knowledge, and thank you for sharing the whole context about how to find and productionize a real, the human use this kind of drug. We have to the potential, the target, this kind of structure, and then lots of human in the loop, the scientists and engineering, to verify the safety and to phase 1, 2, 3, this kind of clinical trials. And we also need to double check the side effect. And finally, we will get the approval from the FDA. And everything actually looks like it's just about 20 years. Yes, because patent the protection. In the USA, and after that, I think the other countries they will leverage. I know some stories about the India actually after this kind of 20 years the safe coverage for the patent, they will localization.
Yes.
Yes. So it looks like for the bioscience, this kind of field, the future is definitely pretty good. But for even current now, yes, leverage this kind of generative AI. There are still lots of human in the loop, lots of human efforts to make it happen.
Yeah.
So okay, yes, we can turn a little bit later to discuss about more. But hi, Michael. Yes. we can start a new topics about the medical device, or maybe the device, about the spec or about your understanding of the market. Yes, would you want to share some context of your startup? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, SPECT, what we're doing with eye care and is more traditional, AI or machine learning, right? So we are looking at images and then using big data, being able to do correlations and causations. So more of image recognition, diagnostics, and that's nothing really new, right? I was like, this has been a well-researched field in X-rays and ultrasound, and then now with with Google Brain that published their paper back in 2017, it really opened up this new field of oculometrics, so looking at the eye. I think maybe what's a little bit more interesting for the crowd today is the use of generative AI, right, or LLMs, has been in really the natural language processing pieces. And so how do we use it to interface with patients? How do we use it to, interpret doctors' notes, right, that are very organic and not structured? One study I remember reading a couple months ago is really interesting. Patients, at least here in the US, send doctors, messages through email or through, online chat portals. And usually doctors respond with really short messages, and patients rate it really poorly because it's very direct and to the point. But they had done a cohort where they've used, ChatGPT, and the patient satisfaction went way up because ChatGPT, a little bit more empathy in the messages, right? It's like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear you're having these problems. It must be really difficult. Have you tried X, Y, or Z? That said, ChatGPT messages were not necessarily always correct. And so I think the way that we're seeing it today is that it's still a question of like human augmentation, right, or human in the loop. And so using ChatGPT to formulate the structure, to write the emails, but still having that human to double check the accuracy and the efficacy of the suggestions. So I think that's where where we've seen really a lot of these. Even just last week, I remember reading an article. ChatGPT is certainly learning and advancing very quickly. Last year was passing the medical board exams with like 60%. I think last one they did a month or two ago, it's like 98% accurate. And then, it's even passing specialty board exams now. So the ophthalmology board exam, it's passing that. And so it's definitely getting a lot smarter in our field.
Yeah, for SPECT and for yourself, actually, I have two questions. The first one is, would you mind to share some stories why you choose to drop out of Stanford, start your company? And to say, I'm interested about that. And the second one, is here, I know SPECT, actually, we also have the physical device, and there actually already lots of clinics use our device. So I want to get some sense on your side for this kind of hardware device innovation or this kind of startup. What kind of a challenge on our side, or the because what? Because I hear lots of news say, "Hi, looks like the Shenzhen, this kind of the China mainland, they have this kind of logistic benefit." So for this kind of hardware development, they say it looks like they can leverage this kind of benefit. But on our side, yes, do we have this kind of, the challenge on our side, and how to deal with address it. Yes. So two questions. The first one is your personal topics, but the second one is I want to know more about the medical device or the device, this kind of hardware innovation in America. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I started SPECT. It's now been 7 years ago. I was working on, my PhD. I was approached by my other co-founder, who's an ophthalmologist. So they had developed the device mostly as a side project in the garage. And they had approached me and they're like, hey, we want to bring this to market. Can you help us with, engineering and turning this into a real product? So I was initially helping them, on the weekends and in the evenings. But at some point, company went through Y Combinator, and then company raised a little over $2 million. And so at that point, it was no longer a side project. So that's when, myself and my co-founder, we both, I dropped out. I was like, I took a leave of absence and decided to pursue this full time, out of responsibility for investors. And that's, the rest is history. And then to your other question, hardware, there are advantages in both locations. SPECT to date has still a very US centric supply chain. A lot of that is just due to, imports and tariffs, and then also being able to, go and visit and help debug our manufacturing, line. And so we actually manufacture here in San Jose. It's about an hour drive for me from San Francisco, and I'm able to sit on the line, the manufacturing line with the technicians and see them build. I think as companies grow and they scale, larger and larger, for example, like Apple or others, that's when it makes sense to move some of the manufacturing to, to Shenzhen or to China, or, other places in Southeast Asia now too. It's like, I know Vietnam has become a manufacturing hub as well. But you need certain volume to make it cost effective, because you'll still need to send engineers to the line to help with debugging, and to help with, getting things up and running. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Thank you very much for your answers. Thank you for your guys. So let's go into another chapter. Another chapter is about the community, about the leadership. I invite you three guys to on board for this kind of coffee chat because Zhibin actually is the vice president of Casper, and Michael and Julia, actually, you are the leader in the MJAA. So, hi, Zhibin, would you want to share some context about the Casper and what's the mission and, so what's going on, what's the plan? I know your community has some big actions this year. Would you want to share some context? Let our audience to know more about your guys. Yeah. Are you unmuted? You are muted, Zhibin.
Hello. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, I think Casper is a non-profit organization, and it's Chinese American semiconductor professional organizations. So it's founded in 1991. So, and founded by some employees, engineers, executives from TSMC in 1991. So we have 33 years of history. It's a non-profit. It's operated wholly by volunteers. So it's a professional membership organization for semiconductor industry. So our mission is promote collaborations for our members and for our corporate sponsors. So we have right now, so far, we have 7,000 members, lifetime members, and also we have over 70 corporate sponsors. And the corporate sponsors, they sponsor us every year. And those corporate sponsors are all big names in the semiconductor industry, like TSMC, AMD, Broadcom, Synopsys, Cadence, all those companies. Yes. And we host different events for our community and for the whole semiconductor industry, also for the Silicon Valley. So we normally have like a symposium, seminars, and annual conference and dinner banquet. And this year we have a lot of new programs. So myself actually initiate a new program called Casper AI Lab. So this is a purely a non-profit initiative that help the young generations of Chinese American to get internship or help them with startups, like help them to working on using AI to tackle real challenges and real problems, and even build a startup around it. Because under this program, we were backed up by the corporate executives from our semiconductor industry. So many of our mentors are like executives from semiconductor industry. And also, we are going to invite a lot of founders in AI spaces to give like office hour, like tutoring or mentorship to the young students. This is just one. So we have a lot of other activities. We also have a mentorship program. Like Julia said, MJAA is a mentorship program from Mountain Jade. And this year we started another similar mentorship program. So in Casper, so every month we invited some executives, like very successful Chinese American leaders from semiconductor industry to give talks to our mentees. And all those mentees are young engineers in our community. And that's one thing, the mentorship program. And this year, our president, Mi Yi, is a female president. So we have women in semiconductors seminars, couple of series of seminars to promote women in semiconductor or minority in semiconductor. And we also have science fair, like for the young generations, youth club for the junior high school students. So there's a lot of things going on. So yeah, I think it's also because of the semiconductor industry suddenly become very hot, right? In the stock market, all the semiconductor companies, the stock is skyrocketing. NVIDIA, Broadcom, and TSMC, they are doing very good because they are fueling power up the AI revolution. So, in the Silicon Valley, in the past maybe 10 to 20 years, software is eating the world, right? But right now, same things are coming back. So the hardware, the semiconductor is playing very important role in this AI revolution. So we feel very excited in being in this industry, or we can help contribute to this local community.
OK， 我总结一下，照顾两边的这个观众。Casper 中文名字是华美半导体，是我觉得可能是最大的这个中美两边的半导体工程师的专业人员组织了一个 NGO 的一个组织，然后全球可能现在已经超过7000名这个会员，完全是按照美国这边 NGO 的一个运作方式来运作的，大家是 volunteer 的参与这个时间。然后我记得应该是在台湾、美国的纽约以及可能新加坡、东南亚，就 global 都有我们的这个会员，是吧？而且大家都是非常资深的。而且我之前的新闻看到曾森黄之前也是在华美半导体里面做的 keynote speaker。所以基本我们能想到的，在这个牌桌上，现在这个 industry 当中主要的这些硬件的半导体玩家，都跟我们这个华美有着千丝万缕的联系，大家非常的 professional， 而且都是在这个协会里面 donate 自己的时间精力和一些这个 innovation。而且今年这个肖会长 drive 了一个非常有意思，我觉得也非常有益处的一个 program， 就是帮助年轻一代的这些华人去找工作，但是找这个工作其实更多的是说 OK AI based 的一些工作，因为实话实说，今年的我觉得无论是在大陆，可能是在美国，今年对这个fresh graduate students 他们都是非常的挑战。然后在这种的情况下呢，又在这个 AI 的助力，所以我们华美是 set up 了这个类似的一个 club 或这个 program， 然后有一些以这种 AI 的 company， 他们有这些工作的机会。第二呢，就是说这些 founder 他们愿意用自己的
It's disconnected, I think.
Yeah. It's like, uh-oh, somebody froze.
Hi, Juliet. Yes, looks yes. How about yes, we can talk about the MJA. Yeah.
Sure. I'm happy to talk about that. I had
Yes.
joined MBA during the pandemic, actually, and so this was a really, difficult time during the pandemic, a lot for the Asian Americans, and I was seeking kind of community, especially during that time when all of us were isolated, right? And I was fortunate to come across Monty Jade, Asian American, and the mentorship program through this group MJAA, and decided to join because the mission of the organization is to accelerate the advancement of emerging Asian American leaders. And how do we do that? We do it through 3 pillars. We do it through mentorship, we do it through leadership skills training, and then the last part is networking, creating that and fostering that community. So this organization has been, I think, operating, creating this mentorship program every year for over 10 years now. I think it's closer to like probably 15 to 20 even. And the original Monty Jade West organization came to really help support the engineers who was coming from Taiwan to Silicon Valley to work, and they were truly a minority at that time. So there was a need to create this community to help support the engineers coming from Taiwan as they were growing in the careers here in Silicon Valley. Since then, it's really opened up to Asian Americans in general, and it's still very focused on the Bay Area. During the pandemic, it was virtual for my year, and then we went into a hybrid format for the last 2 years, and Michael participated in that format where we had remote, participants like yourself too, and then others who were in the Bay Area. For this year, as we're coming into a new normal with the pandemic, we want to emphasize those deep in-person connections. I think we can all agree that while virtual remote sessions like this allows us to give access to so many more people, there's still something about having that in-person connection that really creates that tight bond. And so we want to this year go and offer an in-person experience. And so this year's program is going to be in the Bay Area. And for those who can join us for our monthly workshops and mentoring family meetings, that's what we're going to really focus in on. It's a 6-month program from October until March, and we meet once a month to have these workshops where we talk about topics that are important for development, such as communication, networking, how to build high-performing teams. And then we also have family groups, and this is where a lot of the value, I think, comes in, where the mentees are put into a group of 5 where they're with peers, and then there's an executive mentor, as well as what we call a family lead, who is someone who went through the program as a mentee and are now volunteering to help facilitate these family group meetings. And it's through these meetings with the mentees and the mentor that you get to really talk about the challenges you're facing, topics that you might be afraid to talk to about with your manager or your colleagues at work. This is a safe space for people to really talk and also practice the skills that we're teaching, skills that they want to really hone. And so that's a big crucial part of the program, and the families meet about once a month as well. And then sprinkled throughout the program, we have networking opportunities and events where we actually get together with like groups like KESPA, like we have a quarterly hike, and we want to be able to help foster not only connections in MJAA, but also with the members in other organizations that are also doing great work to advance the Asian American community. So this year I'm chair and Michael is vice chair. I'd like to see if Michael, if you want to add something about your own experience and MJA as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think MJA, program has been beneficial, at least for me, in being able to meet other, professionals in this field, and then also to do that peer mentorship group. We really emphasize, having the ability to practice leadership in a safe space. And both Julie and I, as chair and vice chair, like this is also a leadership opportunity for us to, practice our leadership skills with, a group of volunteers and other mentees in leading the program. Some of the benefits that I've received really from the community has been to be able to meet other awesome mentees and candidates and being able to share, our own struggles in being Asian, growing up in the Bay Area, and then really how do we evolve and grow our careers. For me, it was really eye-opening to learn about other disciplines, right? And as an engineer, trained as an engineer myself, but being able to learn about sales and finance and marketing, which are very different product functions than I would have had the exposure to naturally. And so that really helps open my eyes and understand, the priorities and the sorts of questions, right? When certain projects are proposed, and being able to bring a more holistic view back to my organization. And so.
Yes, so we're actively recruiting.
Do we have some of the new activities of the program? I mean, the sub-program for the MJAA this year? And, do we have some new of the improvement for the program for the MJAA this year? But before that, you give me the answer, I want to shout out to David. David is my mentor during the COVID. I learned lots of things from the family team and from the David. I still remember David told me, to be a good CEO, at first you have to be a good CFO. You need to how to control your costs. It is very, the work is very straightforward. But if we looking back to lots of even this the rising startup, but they failed, it usually breaks the law because you didn't control your finance, didn't control your cash flows, things like that. So after I graduated from the program, I deeply remember this word. Yes, it's a big takeaway. Yes, if you have something, I know, the MJAA mentorship program is already mature and lots of the pioneers in the different industry from the American Asians joined our program. And if we have something new, this kind of activities, yes, you can mention about it. Yeah, the new sub-program. But if
go ahead.
Yeah, but if not, actually, another question for your three guys is, in the driving this kind of a community, yes, what kind of challenge you confront with? Yes, we run in the NGO. We need the volunteer contributing about it, but yes, on your side, how to motivate this kind of volunteer to join, because actually everybody has a family, lots of stuff and lots of pressure from the work, how to balance this kind of thing and step by step to improvements our community. Yeah. Do you have some this kind of the lessons or other data points to share with me? Because I also, to join the TGO family, I also want to learn how to improve myself, improve the TGO. Yeah. Hi, Jibin. Yeah, you go first.
Yes, I can have some. Yeah, that's very good question, because all the NGO are operated by volunteers, right? The volunteers, you don't pay them, and they have family issues. They sometimes they have very random issues that they cannot spend time on some of the events or projects. So yeah, I think that the lesson I learned is that before you actually talk to the volunteers, ask them to do something, you have to totally, as a leader, you need to know the process, understand all the details, minor details. And then you delegate those people, volunteers, if they are new to the organization, if you know what to do. And also, if they are very capable volunteers, then you give more like freedom to the volunteers. For example, right now, our CASPA has more than 100 volunteers, and some of them are actually senior directors from some big companies. And some of them are like, they hold like Stanford MBA or like Wharton MBA degrees. We have like 6 board members who has Wharton MBA degrees. Some of them are very experienced. So it's, you need to really understand their like experience, their expectations, to actually delegate work to different volunteers. And also, communication skills are very important. So since everybody are volunteers, so we need to be very to the point for the communication, and also the efficiency, execution. So it's like working on a startup. You need to make sure it executes very well. So, and that's lead by the example. But if you, as a leader, you don't know what to do, sometimes they will also get frustrated, or they don't know what's the purpose of the event, how to operate the event. But fortunately, our CASPA organization has 33 years of experience. We have so many like former presidents and former executive leaders in our community. We can always find help from the organization. Yeah. So yeah, that's my lesson to like how to motivate the volunteers to do good work.
Yeah, I think I'm going to add to this. I was like, working or volunteering with nonprofit organization, I think is a really good way for people to develop leadership skills, right? When you talk about mentorship and how to get promoted into, manager, director roles, working and volunteering at a nonprofit organization is a good way to gain some of that experience. We talk very often about, leadership without authority, right? I was like, in a nonprofit organization, we are leading a team of other volunteers, but, unlike a career where they are, your employees will listen to you because they are getting a paycheck, right? In a nonprofit organizations, if you don't treat your employees well, if you don't treat your volunteers well, then they will just quit and leave. And so when you talk about a lot about just like, how do you also help them in their career growth and their, personal growth, so that they're interested in giving their time and in volunteering, just beyond helping the organization meet its goals.
Yeah, it's building the team, actually building the culture. Yeah.
Yes. And I think you hit it right there on Junwei, about building a culture within the organization. And I think for us at what I've seen at MJAA, I see the care from both not only the mentors, but also the other members of the community who were mentees, and really wanting to help each other grow, right? And there's a sense of seeing the value of paying it forward. We get to experience this learning, and it's not something we should just keep to ourselves, right? We should pay it forward and spread the learnings to other people. And in that generosity, we get a lot of people who want to be involved, to pay it forward. And as Michael was saying, is a great opportunity to put into practice the leadership skills that we're learning. That's why I decided to come back, and initially was volunteering to chair a women's leadership summit, which was a new endeavor that the Monty Jade program started 4 years ago. And it was one of the most fantastic experiences for me, because I had a small team, and we were putting together this half-day event, but it was like start to finish, getting the themes, finding speakers, getting the marketing, so many different skills we were putting into creating this event. And what I loved about it was that, I got to lead in a way that I hadn't actually really had the experience to lead in my regular job, because we were all so passionate about this one project, and people, I was able to find what their interests and skills were, just like what Davina was saying, really understanding the volunteers' motivation and then allowing them to take on those roles, the tasks that they are able to then put into practice, those skills and interests. And then when they run into issues, my job was to help them, work through it or be a point of escalation. So my style is really to try to understand the individuals very well, to understand what they then would be best suited for in terms of the activity, and then empowering them to be able to take on that task, owning what they're doing. And then if things, for whatever reason, don't go as planned, I'm there as like, kind of the safety net to see, okay, how are we going to work through it? And I think that's something I learned kind of through Monty Jade. And importantly, I'm getting to practice as we lead this, current year's program. And I think for a lot of individuals, as they think about volunteering, yes, everyone's time is, of course, very, very important. And it's quite tight nowadays. And that's where we, as an organization, it's good to find different types of opportunities where some people could, only put in 1 hour a month. There's probably something they could still do to contribute versus someone who can put in, 10 hours. And so it's a matter of really understanding the people's motivation, their being very clear to them what the role entails and seeing from them very clearly what their bandwidth is, and then making sure, constant communication, as Jibin was saying, is also very key, just to make sure everyone is trusting each other that if something happens, because things always happen, you have someone who can come in and, and help you. And so that's, I've seen, and I've worked on a lot in different nonprofit groups outside of Monty J too. And I think that's what I've seen, where we're able to keep like a steady group of people to lead the organization. And always important to get new people in as you continue to, cycle through, because succession planning is always, honestly, that's really the hard part, right? Especially with the top leaders. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for story, guys. You share this kind of the understanding about how to run and how to improve the organization, especially in the American NGO. And I will use Mandarin to summarize what we said a little bit for CASPA and MJAA. And after that, give me about maybe extra 3 minutes, and we can talk about the last question, especially for the Julie and Michael, about the second generation, the immigrant, how to grow our career in American. 就是我稍微总结一下，然后肖博士是华美半导体，然后呢，黄博士和 Michael 是这一届的 Chair 和是这一届的 Vice Chair 和 Chair， 关于这个 MJAA 领导力社区的，然后 MJAA 更多的是一个泛亚裔的，一个大家在一起 get together， 然后互相去 train leadership 的一个组织。这个 session 呢，每次可能会有6个月、半年的时间，然后小伙伴们有来自大陆的，有来自台湾的，有新加坡的，印度尼西亚的，以及可能是菲律宾的 global general 的亚裔的，我们去传了这么一个 community。然后呢，应该是最近这个阶段，我们又开始下一期的新的 session 的 recruiting 欢迎这个小伙伴们去参加。然后我知道肖博士的这个华美肯定也是每年都会有新的 member 去申请去参加。然后这一次呢，我邀请3位，更多的也是 TGO 和这个 MJA 也和这个 CASPA 华美，我们去 make friends， to know each other， 互相去串门。In future 我们会有在湾区或者在西海岸有更多的互相的这个互动。这一次呢，其实是我们 set up 这个 coffee chat 的一个主要的目的 to know each other, to build the trust, and we actually also can have this kind of communication and this kind of a channel or pipeline. Yes. The last question for Michael and Julian. We also can talk about, for the new immigration or the second generation immigration, how to set up our career paths in here, also what kind of challenge or how actually we address this kind of problems or the challenge to achieve more. Yeah. Hi, Michael. Would you want to share your opinions about that?
Yeah, I think programs like MJAA or Casper or others, right? I was like being able to connect with other people that have similar experiences to you and being able to really talk about it and bridge that gap between, staying true to the Asian or to the Chinese culture and the Chinese values, but still being able to succeed and thrive, in American cultures, sometimes don't match with each other. And so being able to discuss with a community and a close group, to be able to stay authentic and be able to succeed. I think that's the way that I see it. I'm born, in America, and so there's different culture and different values that have ingrained in me, as I've grown up here. But that I also see, the values that my parents have taught in me and being able to represent those, as I keep going forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably couldn't have said it any better in terms of really that piece of, for us, it's interesting being a Chinese American. Sometimes growing up, I didn't feel like I was Chinese enough, but I also wasn't American enough. And I think, and my parents came when they were much older, in their 30s. So I grew up with very traditional parents in that sense. Which is good because I got to speak Chinese at home and I learned about the food, the culture, the values. And it is very important to me that I remember that part of my identity. I think in America, sometimes what happens is we have, the model minority myth, which says that as Chinese Americans, as Asian Americans, we're doing fine. We don't need help. We're the model minority. And when I was early on in my studies, I had some experiences where I was told, you don't qualify for this program to get exposure to Caltech. I was very excited about going to Caltech. And that was because Chinese or Asian Americans were not considered minorities. At the same time, I also, in my family, I'm the first to go to college. My parents didn't get a chance to go to college, and they grew up in the villages of southern China and Kaiping. And so I didn't understand why I was not qualified for that. And it was only later that I realized, it's because I'm Chinese. So for a long time, I didn't really think about my identity as a Chinese American. And in fact, I didn't bring it up because I felt like, am I taking away resources, from someone else that needs it more? But as what Michael's saying, that authenticity piece is so important. And over time, you start to realize like it's hard to code switch and to go between two different identities. And I think with the pandemic, I started to really understand the misconceptions, right, that people have of Chinese Americans, Asian Americans. And I started to realize this is very important to not only step into that part of my identity, but embrace it and to show people, no, these are misconceptions. Like we are leadership material, because that's one of the thoughts that people have. And that we, as a community, can really overturn these misconceptions that people have. And so just like Michael, I have found that the best part has been to find others who feel that this is an important aspect, to raise our voices, to show people what we're capable of beyond just doing getting the work done. Like we can represent as leaders. And in fact, we have a lot of leaders that have made such a big difference in the US, right, with the different companies that have been founded and led by Asian Americans. And as I'm seeing more people speak out about that, that's what gets me to be more inspired to also speak up. And I think for us, that's the first step, is finding our voice and then showing and demonstrating how we are effective leaders, and then being able to really work towards uplifting the whole community, because that's what it will take to change the misconceptions that people have. So I hope that helps with, kind of sharing our own.
Thank you for this kind of, the live suggestion. I will try to summarize, in the Mandarin.我这个问题呢是强调可能是中美的或者是中国的这个移民如何去发展，但是其实我们如果退后一步， 从一个小县城，然后去北上广深，难道我们就不会遇到一些 culture 或者其他的一个 challenge 吗？其实我们离开我们自己的家乡，人生在整个一个 journey 的过程当中，在每个地方，我们都会遇到一些 culture 或者是其他的文化或者价值观上的这个不一样。但是现在的这一个社会 global 的来讲，大家还是尊重创新的，就是你有自己的这个 innovation， 你有自己的一个 identity， 然后呢，你也发出一个自己的声音，让这个 community， 让其他地方知道你，这样慢慢的大家就会去接受你。我觉得这是一个最重要的一个 lane。第二点呢，就是如果的确遇到了一些 culture 或者价值观上或者其他地方的一些困难，本身也会有很多的 NGO 作为一个 buffer， 给大家进行一个缓冲，然后你在这些地方呢都会找到一些助力点或者是锚点，帮你去实际上去分析这个问题。因为有的情况下，你就会觉得啊，这是不是我是一个华人的身份，或者是某某的是不是一个移民的身份造成？但其实可能从别人的角度来看，它只是我关于这件事情我有这点opinion，别人是在就事论事，或者是我们在就事论事，但是大家就是 misunderstanding， 这其实反而就发挥出来了。无论像 TGO， 然后像这个华美或者是 MJA 这些 NGO 组织的一个功能，帮大家 build 一个更广泛的一个 networking， 以及尽可能去消融这些误解，然后大家再出发，就在过程当中。但是我们应该知道，我们无论是从小县城去大城市，或者从中国去美国，我们都会遇到一系列的问题，可能是来自于价值观之不同，然后可能是来自于 culture 生活上的这个习惯的冲击。大家只是求同存异，但是大家肯定会 respect 你自己的 innovation 的创新，然后你自己的 opinion， 你自己的这个 identity， 以及我们自己的 culture， 无论是这个一个 community 的 culture， 还是我们自己国家的一个 culture， 我们都会很 proud of 我们自己。我觉得是这样的一个形象，其实你无论是走到哪个地方呢，大家都会是有理有利有节的 show your respect， 也很愿意跟我们去合作，然后我们一起去做得更加的沉淀这一层的 culture， 沉淀这一层故事，然后可以做得更好。谢谢三位不仅是在自己的业界、自己的 career 做得非常非常的出色，然后呢，同时也非常显示了自己的这个 leadership， 在整个的一个西海岸有非常大的一个 impact。小伙伴们如果感兴趣，也可以去申请。这次呢，也是我们3个 community 互相的 say hello, build trust。谢谢大家的时间，也。Okay, good.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
nice to meet you, Zubin. Yeah, we
nice
should
meeting
have
you.
more. We should have the events then with
Yeah.
MJ and Casper, the hikes and all that.
Right, definitely.
Yeah, if you're in the Bay Area, then easy to collaborate.
Yes.
Love to collaborate.
Yeah, I think as Julie said, Asian American can be great leaders, and there's so many leaders in our semiconductor industry.
Yes.
Jensen, Lisa, Hawk Tan, there's a lot. So we should be proud of our identity. So that's what I'm telling my kids. You should be proud of as a Chinese American. So
we are, yes, and I definitely think
I
that
we can leave this room and chat with each other offline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.